There are moments in life so small, so seemingly insignificant at the time, that we don't realize their weight until much later. A decision made in passing, a chance meeting, or even a single word spoken at the right or wrong time can alter the entire trajectory of our lives. We tend to think of life as something vast, stretched out endlessly before us, but in truth, it is condensed into moments. And September, as a metaphor, reminds us of this truth. It represents the season of transition, the place where summer gives way to autumn, where light begins to fade and the air sharpens. In the same way, our lives hinge on transitions, on the seconds and minutes that tip us from one chapter into the next. If you think about it, every great story, every profound transformation begins with just one moment. The hero's journey is not launched with endless preparation, but with a single call to adventure, often unexpected and uninvited. The student chooses to speak up in class, and that one act of courage sets a pattern for future confidence. The business owner takes a risk on an idea, and that one leap becomes the foundation of an empire. The man or woman who chooses honesty over comfort in a relationship plants the seed for a trust that might last a lifetime. One moment, just once, can carry within it the entire weight of who we might become. But here's the paradox. We rarely recognize those moments as they happen. When we look back at September, the moment of transition, that we recall most vividly, because it is only after change has occurred, only after the warmth of summer has slipped into the coolness of autumn, that we realize something has ended and something else has begun. Life teaches us retrospectively. We walk forward, but we understand backward. The challenge then is to live with the awareness that even the smallest actions can bear great consequence. To treat every choice as though it matters, not in a paralyzing way, but in a way that honors the potential of each day. That conversation with a friend you were tempted to cancel, it might become the moment that heals a fractured bond. That book you decided to read instead of scrolling endlessly on your phone, it might spark the idea that reshapes your career, that decision to take responsibility rather than blame someone else. It might be the first step toward genuine maturity, and here's where the metaphor of September deepens. It is a season that demands our attention precisely because it is fleeting. The colors of the leaves burn brilliantly, but only for a brief span before they wither. Likewise, the moments in our lives blaze brightly for only an instant, then fade into memory. We don't get them back, and because of that, their weight is magnified. Imagine if you had known that the last time you saw a love dot, one was truly the last. Would you have said something different? Would you have held on a little longer? These questions are uncomfortable because they expose the fragility of life, but they are necessary. They remind us to live in a way that does not take any moment for granted. This does not mean that every second of life must be dramatic or extraordinary. In fact, the extraordinary often hides in the ordinary. A September afternoon can look like nothing more than sunlight filtering through a half-open window, but years later, that memory might become your anchor in difficult times. What transforms a moment into weight is not its grandeur, but its meaning. And meaning comes when we bring presence, when we are awake enough to notice. The tragedy of our modern age is not that we lack opportunities for meaningful moments, but that we are too distracted to recognize them. We move so fast, chasing what's next, that we miss what's now. So when I say that life hinges on the weight of a single moment, I am really issuing a call to pay attention, to look up, to listen more intently, to speak words of encouragement when you feel the urge instead of silencing yourself, because you don't know if that one word might be the lifeline someone else needs. To take the risk when it aligns with your values, because that risk might be the doorway to your destiny. To pause long enough to appreciate the beauty of the present season, because when it passes, you will never have it back. Just once upon a September is not merely a poetic phrase. It is a reminder that life is not lived in endless tomorrows, but in fleeting todays. It's in the one September evening when you sat with a friend and shared your heart. It's in the one September morning when you decided to start diet fresh instead of dragging the weight of yesterday into a new day. It's in the one September night when you realized that time is not infinite. And that realization gave you the courage to truly begin living. So the weight of a single moment is this: it can carry the power of a lifetime, but only if we are present enough to seize it. September teaches us anything, it is the necessity of change. The month stands as a threshold, a reminder that the warmth of summer cannot last forever, and that the arrival of autumn is inevitable. The air sharpens, the leaves begin to fall, and nature itself whispers a truth we often resist. In order for something new to begin, something old must end. This is not merely a poetic observation, it is a fundamental reality of life. Change is not optional, it is the current that carries existence forward, yet human beings are notoriously resistant to it. We cling to what is familiar, even when it no longer serves us. We hold tightly to habits that erode our potential, relationships that stifle our growth, or narratives about ourselves that prevent us from seeing who we might truly become. Letting go feels like loss, and loss feels like death. But what we fail to realize is that refusal to let go is a kind of death too. It is the death of possibility, the slow suffocation of growth. Think about the trees in September. If the leaves refused to fall, clinging desperately to their branches, the tree would not survive the coming winter. The shedding is not a tragedy. It is preparation. It is an act of wisdom. The tree trusts the process of nature. It does not fight the cycle. It surrenders to it, knowing that spring will bring renewal. And yet, when it comes to our own lives, we resist this same wisdom. We cling to old seasons long after they have passed, refusing to acknowledge that a chapter has closed. But here is the truth. Letting go is not weakness, it is strength. It is the recognition that the past cannot be preserved, that change is not the enemy, but the very condition for growth. Without endings, there can be no beginnings. Without death, there can be no resurrection. September does not apologize for its falling leaves. It embraces them as part of the rhythm of existence. Now, this does not mean letting go is easy. It is one of the most painful acts we face as human beings. To release someone you love, to surrender a dream that no longer aligns with your reality, to step away from a version of yourself you have outgrown, these are not simple tasks. They demand courage, they demand faith in the unseen, because when you let go, you step into uncertainty. You open yourself to what is not yet visible, and that is terrifying. But think of the alternative. To refuse change is to remain stagnant. It is to hold on to summer in the middle of autumn, pretending that warmth has not already faded. It is to deny reality, and denial, while it may feel comfortable for a time, eventually leads to despair. To live in denial is to live in contradiction with the world itself. And no human spirit challenge of life then is to cultivate the wisdom to discern what must be released. Not everything should be abandoned. Commitments, values, responsibilities, these are anchors that hold us steady. But illusions, fears, destructive habits, and false identities, these are the leaves that must fall. They may have once been necessary, they may have once protected us, but when their time has passed, clinging to them suffocates us. Letting go, in this sense, is not an act of rejection, but of trust. Trust that life has more in store. Trust that what lies ahead, though uncertain, may be richer than what lies behind. Trust that the loss of one season is not the end of the story, but a preparation for the next. September does not mourn the loss of summer. It transitions with dignity, aware that each season carries its own beauty. And here is the deeper lesson. Letting go does not mean forgetting. The past is not erased, it is integrated. The leaves that fall become part of the soil that nourishes future growth. Similarly, the experiences we release do not vanish. They become the foundation for who we are becoming. The mistakes we made, the joys we experienced, the people we loved and lost, all of these remain, but they take a new form. They enrich us even as we move forward. The real tragedy is not that things change, but that we fail to change with them. We stay too long in jobs that drain us, in relationships that wound us, in mindsets that diminish us because we are afraid of emptiness, afraid of uncertainty, afraid of who we will be without the familiar weight of what we cling to. But if we never release, we never receive. If we never let go, we never open ourselves to the gift of the new season. So, the necessity of change and letting go is not merely a lesson of September, it is a principle of existence itself. To live is to embrace impermanence. To live is to surrender control over the seasons of your life. And paradoxically, it is in this surrender that we find freedom. For when you accept change, when you release what is no longer meant for you, you make room for something greater to enter. In this sense, letting go is not the end, it is the doorway. It is the threshold that carries us from one chapter to the next. September stands as a living symbol of this truth, that loss and renewal are not opposites, but partners, that the falling leaf is not the end of the tree, but its preparation for deeper roots and brighter blooms. And so, if you find yourself in a September of your own life, a season where something is ending, do not resist it. Do not cling to the leaves, release them, let them fall. For only then will you be ready for the spring that waits just beyond the winter. There is something profoundly human about the way we hold on to memory. Unlike the seasons which pass without regret, we are creatures who look back. We revisit moments, replay conversations, and sometimes torture ourselves with what was or what could have been. September, as a metaphor, brings this into sharp focus. It is the month of endings, a time when change becomes visible and therefore memorable. The warmth of summer is gone, but it lingers in our minds as we step into the coolness of autumn. And it is this act of remembering, fragile as it is, that gives life much of its meaning. Memory, though, is not perfect. It is not a recording device. It is selective, colored by our emotions, reshaped by our perspectives, and often distorted by the narratives we tell ourselves. We remember some moments vividly, while others vanish as though they never happened. And even the memories we hold most tightly are fragile. They can fade, twist, or slip away altogether. This fragility can feel like loss. We fear forgetting. We fear that the people we loved, the joys we once knew, or even our own identity will disappear if memory dissolves. But here lies the paradox. The fragility of memory is also what gives it power. If we could hold on to everything perfectly, nothing would stand out. The very fact that memories are fleeting is what makes them precious. You don't remember every sunrise, but you remember the one when you sat in silence with someone who mattered to you. You don't remember every conversation, but you remember the one that shifted your understanding of yourself or the world. It is precisely because memory slips through our fingers that we cling so tightly to the ones that remain. In this sense, memory is not just about the past, it is about meaning. We remember not because we want to hoard experiences, but because we are trying to understand who we are. The memories we hold closest often reveal what we value most deeply. The parent remembers their child's first steps not simply as a milestone, but as a symbol of growth, of fragility, of love. The student remembers the teacher who believed in them because that moment affirmed their worth. The fragile nature of memory forces us to prioritize, to distill life into the moments that matter. And yet there is a danger here too. Because memory is fragile, it can deceive us. We can romanticize the past, clinging to a golden version of September that never truly existed. Or we can chain ourselves to regret, endlessly replaying what went wrong, unable to move forward. In both cases, memory becomes a trap rather than a teacher. We end up living in shadows of what once was, instead of engaging with what is. So the challenge is to hold memory rightly, not as a prison, but as a guide, to let it teach us what we must carry forward without allowing it to prevent us from stepping into the present. That is why September is such a fitting metaphor. The month itself carries memory, the lingering warmth of summer, the first bite of autumn's air. It is a reminder that what has passed is never entirely gone. It leaves its mark, shaping the way we enter the next season, but September does not cling. It transitions. And that is what we must learn to do. Consider, for example, the way grief works. When we lose someone, memory becomes both a comfort and a wound. We replay their voice, their laughter, their presence. At first, the fragility of memory feels cruel. We worry that we will forget the sound of their laugh or the way their hand felt in ours. But over time, the rawness fades, and what remains is not an exact replica of the person, but the meaning they carried in our lives. Memory, fragile though it is, distills itself into essence. The details fade, but the truth remains. And this is where meaning emerges, for memory is never neutral. It is always pointing towards something deeper. Even when distorted, it tells us what we long for, what we fear, what we believe. It is a mirror of the soul. To examine our memories, then, is to examine ourselves. What do you remember most vividly? What moments rise to the surface when you reflect on your life? Those memories are clues revealing what you value, what wounds still need healing, and what hopes you carry forward. The fragility of memory should not frighten us. It should awaken us. It should remind us to live in such a way that our lives are filled with moments worth remembering, to speak words worth carrying in another's mind, to act with integrity, so that when others remember us, they remember courage rather than cowardice, kindness rather than cruelty. Because here's the sobering truth: we will all one day become a memory for someone else, and we will have no control over how we are remembered, except in how we live today. So just once upon a September, or any day, we must ask ourselves, what memories am I creating now? Will this be a moment worth carrying? Am I present enough to notice the beauty, the meaning, the significance of what is unfolding right in front of me? Or am I so distracted, so fixated on the future, that I am letting memory slip through my grasp before it is even made? The fragility of memory and the pursuit of meaning are inseparable. September teaches us that what fades is not lost, it is transformed. And while we cannot hold on to everything, we can choose to hold on to what matters. We can let memory guide us, not as an anchor to the past, but as a compass pointing toward the kind of life we long to live. If there is one lesson that September teaches us above all, it is this: life is fleeting. The days shorten, the leaves fall, and we are reminded that no season lasts forever. And yet, rather than despair, this truth should awaken us. It should stir us to live fully, even if it is just once, even if it is just for a moment. Because sometimes a single act of courage, a single moment of honesty, a single decision to embrace life with intensity is enough to define us. We often live as though we have endless time. We postpone what matters. We tell ourselves we will speak the truth tomorrow, take the risk next year, pursue our dreams someday. But September whispers the uncomfortable truth: someday does not exist. What we have is today. What we have is now. And the tragedy is not that life is short, it is that we fail to live it while we have the chance. To live fully does not necessarily mean to achieve extraordinary feats. It does not mean that everyone must become famous, wealthy, or leave behind a legacy etched in stone. Living fully means inhabiting the present moment with such intensity that it becomes sacred. It means saying the words that matter when you have the chance, instead of silencing yourself out of fear. It means loving courageously, even if love makes you vulnerable. It means daring to dream, even if failure lurks on the horizon. Think about it. What do we admire most in others? It is rarely their possessions or their status. We admire those who risked something, those who stepped into uncertainty with courage. We admire the person who told the truth in the face of lies, even if it cost them. We admire the artist who poured themselves into a single song, painting, or story, even if it was their only masterpiece. We admire the parent who gave everything for their child, even if the world never knew their name. These are lives lived fully, even if only in fragments, even if only once. The power of just once is often underestimated. We imagine that transformation requires endless consistency, decades of effort, and unbroken strength. But sometimes it is just once that shifts the entire story, just once you decide to stand up for yourself, just once you decide to forgive, just once you choose courage instead of fear, and that choice ripples outward, altering the trajectory of your life. September, with its fleeting beauty, reminds us that a single moment of brilliance can outshine years of mediocrity. The leaves do not blaze red and gold forever, but when they do, it is unforgettable. Yet here lies the paradox. To live fully requires that we embrace the risk of loss. If you love deeply, you may lose. If you pursue your dream, you may fail. If you speak the truth, you may face rejection. But the alternative is worse: to never risk, to never dare, to never live. Safety is not life. It is existence without vitality. September does not cling to safety. It lets go, and in doing so, becomes radiant. In the same way, our lives become radiant, not when we cling to control, but when we dare to live with open hands and open hearts. There is also a humility in this way of living. To live fully, even if just once, is to acknowledge that we will not do everything. We will not experience everything. We will not be everything. But we can be something. We can choose to live with intensity in the small slice of time we are given, and that is enough. Not everyone will write a great novel, but everyone can live a great moment. Not everyone will change the world, but everyone can change someone's world, even if just once. Think of those moments in your own life that defined you. Perhaps it was a conversation that lasted only a few minutes, but shaped the course of your future. Perhaps it was an act of kindness from a stranger that restored your faith in humanity. Perhaps it was a decision you made in the quiet of your own mind. A decision no one else saw, but one that gave you strength. These moments may have been fleeting, but they were full, they were sacred. And they remind us that living fully is not about quantity, it is about quality. The danger is that we often miss these opportunities because we are waiting for the perfect time. We think life will begin when we are ready, when the conditions are ideal, when everything falls into place. But life does not wait. September does not delay its arrival until we are prepared. The season changes regardless of our readiness. In the same way, the call to live fully comes now, not later. To hesitate is to risk losing the moment entirely. So what does it mean to live fully, even if just once? It means daring to bring your whole self into this fragile, fleeting existence. It means living with such intensity that even a single day, a single act, a single choice could stand as testimony to your entire life. It means embodying the paradox of September, aware of impermanence, yet radiant with beauty. Right? And so, as we reflect on this metaphor, let us remember, you do not need endless years to make your life meaningful. You need presence, you need courage, you need the willingness to seize the moment, even if it is just once. For one September can hold an entire lifetime if you live it fully.